utterly shocked. That's the best words I can use to describe yesterday's emotions as an Eagles fan with the string of moves that Howie Roseman made on the first day of unofficial free agency. We're going to talk about it. Saquon Barkley, Bryce Huff, Landon Dickerson, Zach Vaughn. Who? We're going to talk about it all the happenings around the NFL. Nick Faria will be joining us from Pro Football Network. Guys, we're taking your opinions and thoughts on the big day and what to expect in day 2 live in 30 seconds. And a very good morning, everybody, and welcome to Trending in the AM right here on Philadelphia Sports Network. We're live, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. You know the drill. Hit the like, share, subscribe, retweet button, depending on which platform you are watching on. It's very important that you get interactive with the show. Get your thoughts, opinions off your chest on all the happenings around the NFL, not just with the Eagles. And it was a day. It was a day in the NFL yesterday. A lot of moves. The Eagles made a lot of bold moves. When Landon Dickerson, our all-pro left guard, gets the biggest contract in the history of the NFL for guards, and that's the third biggest story of the day for the Eagles, you know it was a crazy day. And I will just start by saying, and we'll get to the comments in a second, utterly shocked that Saquon Barkley is a Philadelphia Eagle. I know I was on the no to Saquon Barkley to the Eagles. And I'm still not 110% with the move. And whether I like the move or don't, whether he's better or not, anybody that says that they really thought Howie would pull the trigger on this kind of deal is lying to you. Because let me tell you something. It was a shocking move, shocking development that Saquon Barkley is now a Philadelphia Eagles. Like, I can't grasp this whole thing. I can't. And yeah, so what's up, Travis? And the first thing that broke yesterday, non-Eagles related, but directly to the Eagles, was Swift going to the Bears. You had to know then that the running back room was going to change. Still didn't think it was going to be Saquon. Today we celebrate Howie. And then midseason we berate and critique him. This has become I never overreact to day one. Never. The only overreaction from me you're going to get is I'm shocked. I just can't believe $47 million for a running back. 3-year deal. It's mind-blowing, or whatever it was. Maybe it was 37 with with the incentives to 47. We're just going to jump right into it. Our special guest today, joining me on the I Have No Sponsor hotline, the great Nick Faria,
Hey.
Football Network, Sports Illustrated. Good morning, Nick. How you doing?
Good morning. Pretty busy day for week one. Holy hell.
Week one?
Absurd.
Day one.
Day one, week one, whatever you want to call it. It's early in the day.
And as I'm saying to everybody, Nick, I was just utterly shocked that Howie Roseman did this. Whether you like Saquon or not, whether you think it's a great move or not, there's not one person out there that could say for sure they thought that this was going to happen.
I got to be honest. My expectation was a lot of the rumors coming out were more about Saquon Barkley and his camp trying to increase his price. A typical negotiating tactic that a lot of free agents use. They try to use a particular team to, amp up the cost a little bit. And I thought I thought that was what was going on, because when Connor Hughes of SNY came out saying Philadelphia had offered north of 12 million, I said, I can't see Howie Roseman making this move. But then as the day went on and the signing was made official, you kind of think back a little bit. And the reason why Philadelphia has never spent money at the running back position, I don't think is because, it's a lack of value. I think maybe a part of it is, but how many running backs in the NFL have been available that are equal to Saquon Barkley's talent? And when I say that, people are going to look and say, well, he's 27 years old, a lot of tread on the tires, but he's a phenomenal pass blocker. He's excellent out of the backfield as a receiver, and he can run in between the tackles. There's very few running backs in the modern NFL that can do all three. And that's why Roseman gave him the money he gave. Howie Roseman has shown that he will give massive contracts to positions for players that he believes are at the top of their position. And Barkley is the latest example.
That he believes.
Yeah.
I think that aspect of what you said there is so crucial.
Yeah, well, and the other thing is, like, with Saquon in his career, and people will turn to all the injury concerns and everything that happened, he was the New York Giants offense for the last 6 years. If you look at that entire offense, there was very little to complement his skill set. Their offensive line was terrible. They didn't have a number one receiver. They didn't really have any consistency overall. And yet Barkley now comes to a team in Philadelphia who has not one but two number one receivers, a franchise quarterback, and an offensive line. We can debate if it's still going to be good or not with Jason Kelce, but this is a dependable offensive line still with three Pro Bowlers on the roster. It's very difficult for me to see a situation where this becomes DeMarco Murray again, because number one, they didn't give DeMarco the kind of contract that they gave Saquon, but also the offense is far more diversified. This isn't about an offensive system and the head coach trying to have a power trip. This is about, hey, we've got two receivers, we've got a good quarterback, we've got a good tight end, a good offensive line. Let's get a running back that we can trust to get the ball 20 to 25 times a game and not have to worry about running a running back by committee and running with the hot hand.
I love this comment here. Hurts has got no excuses now to just throw the check down, just period. I mean, you're giving the guy the weapons. You know, I want to get to the offensive line in a little bit because you bring that up, and I think that's a very interesting conversation. But on the injury front, let's be honest. He's only missed 8 games the last 3 years. I mean, how many NFL players that are getting big contracts miss 2 to 3 games? I mean, it's a 17-game season. The other aspect of the injury is he was playing 9-10 games a year on MetLife turf.
Yeah.
We all know, we've been complaining about it since day one, how bad that turf is. There's got to be a theory in your head that maybe playing on a real grass surface and one of the best surfaces in the NFL at Lincoln Financial Field will be beneficial to his health, right?
Well, I think, again, that's obviously part of it. Being 27 years old, you want to make sure you get the last ounce of good football left in him. When I look at Saquon and I look at how he fits in the offense, the one thing that DeAndre Swift struggled with last year, and he was a very good signing. He was kind of that bargain trade that Howie loves to make at the draft, a quality running back that you hope you can get a lot out of, and he put up a 1,000-yard season. But he's not a very good pass blocker. And the one thing you kind of saw this past year is Philadelphia's offensive line, while still dominant, gave up plenty of pressures. And Jalen Hurts had to be in a lot of difficult situations, with some fault that wasn't his own. So if you look at it, you want to make sure you have a running back that can pass protect. And with Barkley, you absolutely have that. And it's no longer a necessary weakness. And the other thing to this that I think a lot of people are overlooking is the fact that Kellen Moore is now the offensive coordinator. And he is a play caller that loves to have a number one running back to address and attack in the passing game, not just the running game. I think we're still going to see plenty of Kenny Gainwell. I think we're going to see a running back drafted in the 2024 draft. But when you look at what this team is and who's running calling the plays now, this is a match made in heaven for Jalen Hurts, for pretty much everyone on this offense.
All right, so you mentioned Kenny Gainwell in the draft. There were multiple comments here. how does this affect Kenny Gainwell? I think K1 is Kenny Gainwell's burner account, but we'll ignore that in a second. Gainwell will be starting, after Barkley. No, that's all right. Serious question, and this is a good one. Is it because of the lack of running backs in the draft? First and foremost, the whole process I still don't know how to talk about this because I didn't expect it. I kind of felt like this whole situation was exactly like the Bijan Robinson in the draft. Everybody was hyping it up, but we all knew it wasn't going to happen. And then draft day came and it didn't happen. It happened, and now I'm still shocked. I actually brought something interesting up last night on Twitter, and some people thought it was a good idea, some didn't. Is there still a place for Kenny Gainwell on this team, or is there a scenario that you think could the Eagles be thinking about moving Kenny Gainwell? Because you're giving Saquon this much money. He's a 3-down back. He's going to get a majority of the touches. He's on the last year of his deal, Kenny Gainwell. Everybody says the Eagles are going to draft someone 4th, 5th, 6th round at a running back. Do you go with Saquon and a draft and try to get an extra late round draft pick for Kenny Gainwell right now? Maybe there's some value in Kenny Gainwell. He's only on a 1-year, basically like $1 million contract. That was kind of my thought process when it happened. You move on from Kenny Gainwell and draft the next young guy to be the backup.
Well, I will disagree with that only because as great as Saquon is, you don't want to run him into the ground early in the season. And this is a kind of move, and I haven't even brought this up yet, but if you look at the signing with Saquon, you know what it reminds me of? The 49ers trading and giving a large contract to Christian McCaffrey. This is Philadelphia's answer to McCaffrey and saying, okay, you've got a great all-purpose running back. We're going to get one, and now we're going to be equal or even a little bit better than you are. And I think the 49ers play a big role in this as well. But even with Barkley, you don't want to give him 25, 30 touches in week 1 through week 7. You want to make sure that he is fresh and ready to go for the playoff run. That's what the Giants failed to do in 2022. They ran him into the ground, and by the time the playoffs rolled around, the poor guy was exhausted. He had nothing left. I think he averaged under 3 yards a carry in both playoff games. So I fully expect Philadelphia to be judicious when it comes to how they handle the running back carries early in the season. But I also think that Gainwell can be effective. It's just not as a number 1 back. And we kind of saw that in the postseason where he can be the scat back, the 3rd down back that you kind of throw in there on a screen or you try to keep him out there. And, he's very good at evading tacklers. Is he the top guy? They learned last year that he wasn't, but that's okay because he's a mid-round pick. You want to just get something out of the running back room outside of Saquon so you can essentially trust everyone on this offense.
I love this here. Howie wants to think of this as having a potential Shady McCoy-like talent. I mean, if Saquon Barkley plays 3 full years and stays healthy, he could go down as equal. Like right now, Shady McCoy is the greatest running back in Eagles history, possibly. Saquon Barkley could be right there. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know about that look from you, but I mean, Shady McCoy holds a lot of records and is one of those
100%.
top 2 or 3. Saquon could go there if he plays out this contract. That's how special of a talent he is.
Nothing against LaShawn McCoy. I'm more of a historical guy, and I look at Van Buren.
And you got to see him play in person, right?
Listen, I didn't see Wilbur Montgomery, but Montgomery is in the top 5. Like he was a big part of Philadelphia's success as well.
Absolutely.
But I look at Saquon and I look at LaShawn McCoy, and McCoy was so unique in that he was essentially the Barry Sanders of the modern era. For a very long time, his ability to get out of cuts was just incredible. I think Saquon's a different runner, and I think Saquon is a more complete runner than McCoy because of the fact, as great as and complete as LaShawn McCoy was, Barkley's pass protection is incredible. And the one thing that I'll say, when you look at offenses and you look at modern offenses, running backs who can block are a high priority. And I don't think Philadelphia has ever had this kind of guy who can come in and pass block the way that Barkley does. It's an incredibly important role for this team. He could certainly go down as one of the best ever if he comes out and dominates like he certainly can behind this offensive line. I get it. I understand. Sue me for being a traditionalist when it comes to Philadelphia sports.
be prepared. The comments can get a little out of hand here.
Oh, it's all good. It's all good.
Do you think that DeAndre Swift was the first guy off the board, and he got a bigger deal than I thought? A lot of running backs, not just Saquon Barkley, got paid yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's part of a philosophical change in the NFL? Because I think there's a little bit to it. The interior defenses aren't as big and boxy as they used to be. Teams aren't afraid to run as much as they used to. It is still a passing league. I get that. But, there might be some slight changes in the short term philosophically. Do you think that this is, was it because of that? Or was it because of all these teams got a lot of money and everybody wants to spend their money? A lot of guys got paid more than I thought. Tony Pollard got a pretty big deal yesterday. A lot of guys got paid big yesterday.
I didn't think DeAndre Swift or Tony Pollard were going to get annual $8 million a year. And it's kind of two-pronged. Obviously, number one, like you said, it's schematic. Teams are getting lighter on the defensive line, and you want to be able to run the ball with the aggressiveness that you can. But the other part is the salary cap increasing. The running back position was devalued for so many years, and a big part of that was because the salary cap was only increasing in an integral amount. It wasn't a massive increase. This past offseason, it moved $30 million, and that changes the entire conversation. Philadelphia does not sign Saquon Barkley if the cap goes up like as little as it did between 2022 and 2023. That signing does not happen. But because they had over $47 million in cap space and have room to create even more, they're looking at it and saying, listen, we know we have to address the defense, but let's make sure our offense doesn't get ignored here. Let's make sure we do our due diligence at these positions and really address what needs to be addressed. And that's getting a quality number one running back that we can trust. Again, like I said earlier, it's not that Howie Roseman has devalued the position. It's that the organization hasn't had a running back of Saquon Barkley's talent become available. And people will look at Bijan Robinson as an example of Philadelphia looking past that. But Philadelphia had a very unique opportunity with Jalen Carter. We knew he was going to fall. We didn't know how far he was going to fall. Then he fell in the Eagles' lap at 9. And all they had to do was trade up with an additional, mid-round pick. And that's what gave them the opportunity, because they are going to address tackle because it's a position of need at a position of high value. When it comes to a running back, though, you better make sure that the rest of your roster is in good standing. For Philly's offense, that is absolutely the case.
I love this comment from Marshawn, too. Christian McCaffrey was always injured in Carolina. Then you move him to a team that's a well-run organization with a great offensive line and a great offensive plan. And he's had phenomenal seasons in San Francisco. You put him in, you've already mentioned the offensive line. You put him in our offense with 2 elite wide receivers, the franchise quarterback, and an elite offensive line. Saquon's not going to get hit as many times or as hard as many times as he was in New York.
And look, I covered the Giants last year a little bit before I went on the Jets beat. And I was covering Philadelphia's run as well, obviously with Philly Sports Network. And the one thing that I saw in every practice was Barkley needed some rest. And they would literally give Barkley rest practices because the number one receiver was Darius Slayton. The quarterback was Daniel Jones. And the best offensive lineman, Andrew Thomas, is really, really good, an all-pro caliber player, but there was no one close to his level of talent. You look at Philadelphia, you look at what they're trying to do. They know they have to put up points to win. And we can blame the defense for a lot of the problems in their late season collapse, and they rightfully should get shredded. The pass rush was horrific. The secondary was atrocious. The tackling was just terrible. But the offense didn't do its job. And they didn't do its job for a number of reasons. A lot of people will say play caller. I'm kind of one that would agree with that. The strategy didn't make sense. Jalen Hurts wasn't the same guy, even though he still had a pretty solid year. You had injuries to AJ and Devontae later on in the year. There were reasons for the offense struggling. But how do you protect that? You protect that by bringing in another core weapon that you can trust out of the backfield.
Oh, man, we'll get to the defense in a little bit because, yes, I mean, that's a pipe dream. But we thought Saquon was a pipe dream, so we'll get to that. I'm just trying to sit here and comprehend what the offense can feel like with, with all this talent now, like there is no excuses, like you said, and everybody else is saying. Like there are so many mouths to feed now, and it's not a bad thing. It's
No,
never a bad thing. Everyone complained that, oh well, how will AJ and Devontae Smith work together? No, everybody gets their touches. I'm just thinking how explosive this offense can really be. I just have to continue to every day gain a little more faith in Kellen Moore as the offensive coordinator, and that he's going to have full control over this offense. Like this could be one of the best offenses we've seen in the last 20, 25 years in Philadelphia.
100%. And the one thing that I'll say about Kellen Moore, when he was in Dallas, he was incredible. He was a great
Yeah.
play caller. People will say, oh, he doesn't run the ball enough. It was this, it was that. There were so many other issues. But I looked at Moore as a product of Mike McCarthy being the head coach than anything else. He goes to Los Angeles with the Chargers, obviously. And again, I can't blame him for last season when Justin Herbert goes down, when Keenan Allen goes down, and the defense is atrocious. They had so many injuries along the offense. It's very hard for me to look and say it's all Kellen Moore's fault and he's terrible as a play caller. He's still very young. He's well respected in most circles that I talk to. And you look at his track record, it's a very, very impressive track record. And I don't think, as people are going to be joking, I don't think we're going to see a first down wide receiver screen to Olamide Zaccheaus right away to start the game. Let me just put that out there. They are going to attack this season, unlike most we have seen in Philadelphia since the Doug Peterson era. This team is ready to win right now. They know they're ready to win right now. And the only question is going to be, okay, how's the locker room? And Barkley is a terrific locker room guy. Bond is a terrific locker room guy, the linebacker they signed from New Orleans. Bryce Huff, I've interviewed him plenty of times when I was on the Jets beat. I love the athlete that he is. He is a very quiet and great locker room presence. Philadelphia is having an overcorrection to the locker room in this free agency, which makes me believe, okay, everyone wants to get on Nick Sirianni. Everyone questions Nick Sirianni as a head coach for last season's collapse. If the locker room comes back together and they are united going into the season, it's very hard for me to look at this team as anything less than a 12-win playoff contender.
I love the point you bring up about Saquon in the locker room. I think that's fantastic. It kind of threw me out. I was going to transition to the offensive line, but I really love that. I think that's a fantastic point. It's funny. We're 20 plus minutes into this show, and I think the first piece of breaking news from yesterday, Landon Dickerson getting his extension, isn't even like it should be the biggest story in Philly. But it's not even like, honestly, we're going to get to the defense. I see a lot of defensive comments. We're going to talk Bryce Huff and the defense and what all that means in a little bit. But like Landon Dickerson, we talked on this show yesterday morning, the commenters and I, about like what is a Landon Dickerson extension look like? And I sarcastically said, is 5 years, $95 to $100 million, paying him $20 million. It's crazy to think of a guard getting that money, but and then the news breaks and he gets $21 million a year, solidifying that left side of the line, him and Mailata. You brought up the running back behind who knows whether this offensive line will be as good. On paper, at least your left side now is set.
100%.
First off, do you think it was an overpay to pay Landon Dickerson?
No, and the free agent market said it wasn't, because Rob Hunt went from Miami, and Rob Hunt's a good offensive lineman. He's a good guard. I wouldn't put him up there with Landon Dickerson, and he got $19 million. So he only got $2 million less. The market dictates where teams are going to go and the kind of contracts that are given. And so when I look at Dickerson's deal, that's not an overpay. That is the right contract for the right player.
Absolutely. How do you feel? Like, because I keep thinking you are losing Jason Kelce. He is a Hall of Famer. He's one of the best of all time. Yeah, we're going to slide Cam Jurgens over. Maybe Tyler Steen or another guard gets brought in the draft to play the right side. You still got Lane Johnson. I am having a little bit of trouble just assuming that this offensive line is going to be elite again because of the loss of Jason Kelce. And I know Landon Dickerson is elite. Maybe he is that new voice and leader of the offensive line, but you are losing a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
So we've got to prepare for, at the very least, some hiccups early on in the season, right?
100%. And again, I think Philadelphia, the fan base as a whole, needs to look through their expectations a little bit. I think the 2023 Eagles, the fan base demanded that they get back to the Super Bowl because they had Jalen and because the majority of their roster was returning. But even when you looked at the talent going into training camp, you kind of said, well, they could get some hiccups early on. They're going to need to regroup. And they started 10-1. And people will say, yeah, but it was an unimpressive 10-1. But they went through the toughest schedule in football. They went through Buffalo, Kansas City, Dallas twice. You had the 49ers. You had all these playoff teams from last season that you had to go through throughout the regular season. This wasn't as if they were playing a bunch of bums every week and they were just playing down to competition. They were playing some really damn good football teams. And it just, to me, the collapse says more about them running out of gas than anything else. Because you looked at the defense, you looked at the offense, they looked tired. Locker room concerns, all these other things have to be taken into account 100%. But when I look at the Eagles overall for the offensive line, yes, there should be hiccups. But that's why expectations should not be, oh, they're going to start 10-0 and they need to win the Super Bowl. It's got to be, okay, if they start 3-2 and go off on like a 7-game winning streak, a 6-game winning streak, that's perfectly fine. You want to play your best football late in the year. So many people are getting antsy and so many people get agitated about what's going on in a day-to-day process for the Eagles, and they all want the news and they all want them to succeed, and they jump down this media circus that is brought in. Sometimes we just need to take a step back. I tell this to Jet fans all the time. Sometimes you need to take a step back and breathe and recognize the plan in place. The plan in place is not to have Saquon Barkley and the Eagles offense putting up 35 points in the first 4 weeks. The plan is to have them ready to go for them to be the most dangerous team in December where no one wants to play them in January. That's what should be the plan, not to make sure everything's hunky-dory by week 1.
Yeah. And I want to address this thing because I've seen a few people start to circulate this, that they're scared because you're just after day one, and everybody overreacts on day one, whether we make moves or don't make moves on day one. I think this year is different. I don't know. This is not something that's talked about much. Yeah, we had $40+ million in cap space. We were like the 11th or 12th team in cap space. We were not the only team that had money available. You saw big names go off the board, low names come off the board. Every team had to be uber aggressive on day one, in my opinion, because of the amount of money everyone had to spend. Everybody's cap went up. I think like 24 of the teams were over the cap to start. Free agency here. It's more. Is it more of that everybody had to be aggressive? Everybody, not just the Eagles. Everybody had to be aggressive and go get their targets right away, right?
Well, 100%, but also look at the biggest losers from yesterday. If you really want to look at it, look at the biggest losers from yesterday. Are the Dallas Cowboys better today than they were yesterday?
No.
Absolutely not. They did nothing. They didn't even want to pay a $4 million contract to Zach Moss, who went to Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. Think about what that does to the fan base. The morale in Dallas is very, very bad. The Giants, they lose Saquon Barkley, and I thought they had an excellent free agent day. They signed a couple of depth pieces on the offensive line. They traded for Brian Burns. Do I think Brian Burns is worthy of the $150 million contract? No.
$90 million in the first 3 years of that deal?
It's insane. It's an insane contract. But you can at least respect it and say, you know what? They lost their best safety and running back and doubled down on positions of value. It's very difficult for me to look at and say they lost free agency. We can obviously joke because they
finally got offensive line help after they get rid of their running back.
100%. But when you are aggressive, it's very hard for me to look and say, well, this is Howie Roseman's fault, or this is Joe Shane's fault. It then comes down to coaching. What this really does, people want to say it puts pressure on Jalen Hurts. This puts the utmost pressure on Nick Sirianni. If Sirianni can't get them to the conference championship, and I think that's essentially where we are at now, because this team is already loaded and the defense hasn't even been addressed. If he can't get to the conference championship, I think there's going to be a legitimate reason to move on from him as head coach. And it's not so much that, oh, he's a great guy, he's a great locker room guy, the locker room still has his back. All these things are true. But Howie Roseman has constructed a roster good enough to win the Super Bowl once again. And it has to be up to the coaching staff to take this home. People wanted to blame Sirianni for not Sirianni. People wanted to blame Roseman for not addressing the safety and linebacker position last year. But when you look at the positions they did address, Philadelphia did a very good job at the start of free agency with the 10 guys that left on day one. He did his job. He had Philadelphia in title contention. The coaching staff and personnel did not do their job. This once again tells me Howie Roseman continues to be the best general manager in football, and it would be absurd if they can't reach the conference final that he would be on the chopping block as well. This is not Roseman's fault. Roseman is setting this team up for long-term success.
It's so funny because, in the last week or two, I've fielded comments on Twitter, comments on this show, DMs, everything from people, customers at my restaurant, saying the Eagles were going to fall back into a little rebuild here. And then Howie comes out. I'm like, no, Howie doesn't rebuild. He might
doesn't do it.
He might reset. He never rebuilds. And this first day, and there's still so much to happen. The first day obviously proves there ain't no rebuild going on. It's, as Marshawn said here, it's Super Bowl or bust for the Philadelphia Eagles. Yeah, the goal is the championship game, but
I think championship game saves. Yeah, I think championship game saves Sirianni's job because you don't know what can happen. If a Brock Purdy situation happens to Philadelphia, are you really going to fire the head coach? That's not going to happen. Right. It's just when I look at this, it's 100% Super Bowl or bust. You are one of the top 3 teams in the NFC, but the expectations have to be tempered a little bit because if you get to the conference title and you fire your coaching staff, what does that tell you? That's dysfunction at the highest order.
Absolutely. So, I mean, obviously you mentioned the defense too, and I know a lot of people want to talk about the defense. We've spent the whole offseason talking about safeties and linebackers and whether Hassan Reddick would get traded or not. And the first move that dropped on the defensive side was young Bryce Huff getting a 3-year, $51 million deal. And I won't lie, outside of this past year, and you covered the Jets, so this is perfect for you because you were there with the Jets all year long. I have one or two small concerns. Bryce Huff, I think it's a great contract. I think if they move on from one of the ends, Sweat or Reddick, it's great. Maybe they move on from both. We'll touch on that in a minute. But this was Bryce Huff's first year of actual real success. Like he was an undrafted guy. He was whatever. And then he really broke out big time this year. Can he sustain that? And can he sustain playing more? What did he play? Like 42% of the snaps last year? Like, can he sustain a role on a team where he's going to be 60%, 70%? If Reddick goes, Reddick was around 72, 75% of snaps last year. Can he sustain that and have another great follow-up season? So it's a great move on paper. I'm just worried about, depending on the other moves, can he continue the success or not?
Yeah, Phil, and I'll add another piece to the concern that people are going to have. They'll look at his run grades and say, well, he's not a very good run defender. Let me quell those fears right away because I've seen him in practice. I've watched him more than most Philadelphia fans have seen him. This guy has a relentless motor. You want to talk about Hugh Douglas and the signing that his overall entrance to Philadelphia brought to the defense. Bryce Huff has a tremendous motor and is an excellent pass rusher. The reason why the sack numbers were not where they are for his entire career was because the Jets didn't play him enough. It really was a mistake on the Jets' part because they had a 25-year-old guy, an undrafted free agent, developing into a superstar right before their eyes, and they did nothing to address him. They let him walk in free agency. I look at Bryce Huff as a more consistent Josh Sweat, and I really like Josh Sweat. I think he's a great overall edge rusher. If Philadelphia has a choice between him or Reddick, I think he's the one that needs to be kept. But I look at Huff, and I look at a guy who is going to get 10-plus sacks this season, and the only reason why he hadn't before is because he wasn't given the opportunity. The Jets run out their defense with Robert Saleh in waves as pass rushers. They kind of do it with like Philadelphia, but Philadelphia has sort of trailed back that thought process in recent years. I could see Philadelphia doing that this season. People talk about Reddick and Sweat being traded. What happens if they're both kept And Howie says, you know what? We've got the cap
Wow.
space for all three of you. Go out there and run it. Now you've got Huff in a natural position as an edge rusher. All of a sudden, Philadelphia's defensive line is not going to be an issue in 2024. So
I think that's interesting. I mean, I spent yesterday talking, what if both get traded, Sweat and Reddick, and then Huff, gets signed, and you're like, oh, all right, it's going to happen. But what if they keep him? I mean, when the Eagles were at their most success, 2017, that was their best year. If you look at the snap counts for everybody on that defensive line, I mean, Fletcher Cox had one of his best years. I think he played like 58% of the snaps that year.
Yeah.
Or 61 or something like that. I mean, that is the MO for when the Eagles have had their most success. And Howie knows that. I just don't know if I can foresee the Eagles convincing Sweat and Reddick to play the last year of their deals without extensions.
I think one of them gets moved. I think one is going to get moved at some point, and it's just going to come down to price. You look at the Brian Burns trade that netted a second-round pick. I think Philadelphia is well within their right to ask for a second-round pick for Hassan Reddick, just by his overall talent.
It's one thing to ask, can they get a second-round pick? That's the thing.
But if you don't get it, you don't have to trade him. That's kind of my point. You can let them sit out in training camp and all that. You give them a little extra money on a bonus so that they hit free agency without any issues in 2025. But there are ways that Howie Roseman can circumvent this. To me, the edge rusher is not going to be a concern, particularly now with Huff on the roster. But I look at Huff's numbers, and they blow both Reddick and Sweat out of the water. You want to talk about pressures and a Brandon Graham type player. Huff is that guy. He has been at the top 5 of pressures for the last 3 seasons. This guy is just relentless at getting after the quarterback. And if you put him in the right situation, which I think Vic Fangio will, he's going to be set up for a breakout year. I'm not talking just, 10 sacks. I'm talking 15, 16 legitimate guys, tackle to the quarterback that essentially make Philadelphia's defense go from 26th in the league last year to among the top like they were in 2022.
And I think that's key, because if you can get that kind of pressure on the quarterback regularly, it makes. I always say James Bradbury and Darius Slay had the great seasons they had in 2022 because you can't expect 70 sacks every year, but because they were getting relentless pressure on the quarterback every single play, it made the cornerbacks in the secondary job a little bit easier. They go hand in hand. I just think, I know you said you like Josh Sweat a lot. I just think maybe Josh Sweat might, even though you can't trade Josh Sweat for as much as Hassan Reddick, he might be the easier one to move just because he doesn't fit in the Fangio system as well. Maybe, hypothetically, I don't know. But then you got Huff and Reddick both like to play the same side of the defense. I don't know which one I prefer to move, but I would prefer to keep Reddick if all you're getting is a third-round pick. I think it's okay to ask for a second. I don't think they can get more than a third for him. But if it's only a third versus a couple more $1 million to Reddick, I'm keeping Reddick and giving him the couple extra $1 million, because what's that third-round pick going to do when you've just gone all in on the offense to get yourself back to the Super Bowl? You might as well keep the best defense available.
And I'll even throw this out here. If you're getting a third-round pick in this draft, it's actually a godsend. The one thing that I've heard from the NFL Combine, and I've been saying this consistently now for a while because I keep hearing it, there are many scouts that believe in this particular class, it is one of the deepest of all time in terms of positions of value and how good this talent is. Philadelphia in the third round is going to and probably can get starting caliber players. The MO on this draft class is there are starters on day one available in the third round. Think about that. Think about how dominant this class is for that fact to be given. In Philadelphia, if you get a third-round pick for Reddick and you get in and you draft a guy like Christian Haynes out of UConn, the offensive guard, I think that's a fantastic selection. You could also add and address the pass rush. And I know the pass rush kind of dips a little bit going into the later rounds, but this is still a pretty deep edge rushing class. The defensive tackle, not so much, but you can address plenty of issues on the roster in this 2024 draft. Philadelphia is set up very, very nicely right now.
Yeah. We can talk the draft, K1. Just don't ask me to name guys. I don't follow the college kids as much. So, it's not my forte or specialty. what about the rest of this Eagles defense? Obviously, linebacker and safety are still the glaring needs. They bring in Lloyd Braun or Zach Bond or whatever his name is. It's a depth move. It's a special teams move. It's a move that doesn't even mean he's going to make the team. Week one, if
Yeah.
whatever happens. Everybody is talking about safety because it was a deep safety class. A bunch of the big names went off. Obviously, we mentioned Xavier McKinney's name. That was my number one goal. That was my number one dream. I wanted Xavier McKinney.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted a 24, 25-year-old stud for the next 5 years on the back end of the defense. Everybody keeps going towards Justin Simmons and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Simmons, I like on the short term, 2-year deal type window. Help get Sidney Brown into the Fangio system. Help Reed Blankenship continue to develop. I don't know why Eagles fans want Chauncey Gardner-Johnson so much. The talent is there. He's better than what we have right now. But people have such short memories and forget how he went out of town, how he left this place. And to me, the scars are still there, the things he said. We have a fractured locker room that we're trying to rebuild anyway. Do you really want a loudmouth like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson stirring the pot even more?
Is it loudmouth or swagger? That's going to be my response, because
that's fair. I get it.
One thing Philadelphia missed on the defensive end was a little bit of swagger in 2023. They didn't have, and again, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is a very good player. He's not great. He's a good player. And when you pay those kind of guys, you have to have something to add to them. What does he bring to the defense that's a little bit different? I look at CJ and I look at a guy who's going to bring a little bit of punch back into the defense, a little bit of punch back into the secondary that was very, very passive last season. I love the Justin Simmons ties to Fangio. There were a little bit of rumblings that it didn't exactly end well when Fangio got fired. But Simmons also publicly commented saying that, listen, he's a great coach. I learned a lot from him. I'm very appreciative. I look at Simmons as the guy, the target for Philadelphia in this particular defense for the rest of the offseason. There's also plenty of other free agents that are still available at safety. So it's not like they'll miss out on the position. I think they're essentially going to sign at least two, maybe just one, but I still think two is probably the safe spot. The big question is linebacker to me, because the safety room is deep. You're going to get a guy. It's just a matter of when. But the linebacker position has plenty of quality starters and plenty of quality starters still available. But if you look at the market has skyrocketed for them. I think the smallest contract right now has been for $10 million annually. And I think that was Cashman of Houston going to Tennessee. This organization, if we want to talk about teams that don't value the linebacker position and they just put value into the running back spot, I don't think they're going to magically change what they do at linebacker. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see what they do with this overall free agent class. I'm going to throw a name out here, and if he's still available after like the first week and his price drops, I think it's certainly something that they could address, and that's Devin White of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's still available. I know he is furious with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for essentially how they handled his last year. If Philadelphia can get him for the right price, that's an upgrade that you've never really had at linebacker, because he's a phenomenal player.
There was a lot of talk last year about Devin White, a lot of talk during the deadline about Devin White, and his game has dropped off a little bit. But if you miss out on all the other things, I mean, if you can get him at the right price, like you said, and then go into the draft and get Cooper or, God forbid, Trotter Jr. or whatnot, and get another young guy there to help the transition, I mean, you're still better off than going. I mean, if we see Zach Bond on the field week one, we got a problem that Howie might have missed something there.
I don't know if Bond is going to be an inside linebacker, though. I think they're really going.
I'm saying in general with the linebackers
100%.
as a whole.
I think Philadelphia is going to use him as a pass rusher, and I think they're going to use him as that situational fifth pass rusher to give a little bit more waves to the pass rush. But the linebacker position is again. It's day one. People want to react so much to so many different moves that happened. They need linebacker. They need safety. The one name and the one position that I've heard consistently that Philadelphia is going to target in the draft is corner. And they could very well be in a position where they are taking a corner in the first round, trading up in the second for an offensive lineman, because this is a very deep offensive line class. They're set up in a very good spot right now because they have plenty of draft capital. They can create even more with the trade for either Reddick or Sweat or both. This is a situation where you kind of look at where the Cowboys are. You kind of look at where the Giants are, the Commanders. Philadelphia is set up really to control the NFC East next year. And it's going to come down to the division with the Cowboys, as it always is, because they still have Dak. They still have Micah Parsons. They still have quality stars everywhere on the field. But when I look at where Philadelphia's needs are and address them in free agency and address them in the available guys in the draft, it's very easy to see how they have a top 5 roster going into training camp.
I mean, everything that's happened so far, the Dickerson, the Saquon, the Huff, how he's all in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's doing it. Is there, I mean, we see people bringing up Bobby Wagner's name. You bring up Devin White. You know, obviously Patrick Queen's is he the biggest name available?
He's definitely the biggest. He's the biggest name available. And listen,
yeah. Is there any scenario where Howie continues to go all in and says, you know what, I've already pushed, 90% of my stack in the last 10 big blinds. They might as well just go all in right now.
Look, Howie Roseman's a great GM.
Yeah.
If I was stunned from him signing Saquon Barkley to a long-term deal at running back.
Yeah.
Shave my ass if they sign Patrick Queen. I mean, this is so out of left field to me of what Howie Roseman would do that I would be like, I'd jump off my balcony. It really is just the craziest move that he could possibly make, just simply because he doesn't do this. This is a position that teams are not valuing. There's no strategic advantage as opposed to signing Saquon Barkley that you could get with Patrick Queen over some of these other guys that can be very dependable. If he drops $15 million for Patrick Queen, all bets are off.
Well, that's all it's going to take. $15 million is all it takes. Give me him right now at $15 million.
I think $15 million. Look, and he's going to want the long-term deal, which Howie is not going to want to give, which is part of the conversation.
I didn't need to know about the ass shaving.
It is so outlandish. Throw anything out there. Anything out there.
So who's to say?
It's not. Look. We can all get excited. They are going to address the linebacker position. They will do it. There's other guys of great value that you can get without paying $15 million a year. That's why I'm looking at Patrick Queen and I'm like, yeah, it would make sense.
Yeah.
This isn't happening. If you want Barkley or Queen, I'd rather Barkley at this stage of their careers.
I guess. I'm sorry. I'm thrown off now. No, it's okay. Let me read a comment or two just to recompose myself. If Hurts and whipping that thing off the Stroud, I don't even know what that really means. We're going to get past that. Too many weapons. Look, there's still plenty of holes on this team, the draft, whatever. What do you think, Howie? Because, like I said, Howie Roseman is always a very conservative day one guy. Maybe he makes one move, and then he lets the market settle. We talked about everybody's got cap. Do you foresee the scenario where Howie has to keep being aggressive today and tomorrow? Normally, after his first big move or two, and he made 3 big moves yesterday, he would just sit and wait, and we wouldn't hear from Howie for another week or two. He's got to keep being – if he wants Devin White or whoever, Justin Simmons, he can't wait. He's got to get it done right away, right?
I don't think so. No. And I looked at the free agent safety market. I look at the linebacker market. And outside of McKinney and Geno Stone, the big fish haven't really gone. I know McKinney is the top guy for a lot of people, as you said, Phil. But there are still plenty of safeties and plenty of linebackers that are still available. And that price will go down by the day. This isn't to say that Howie Roseman is not going to be aggressive. I mean, this is the most aggressive GM in football. We know if there's a deal to be made.
He is, but hold on. He is aggressive, but normally he's cautiously aggressive. Like he plots his way. Very rarely do you see him.
He can get a little gung ho. He can come out there and be like, I want this guy and I want this guy and I want. Remember, the architect of the dream team was not Andy Reid. It was Howie Roseman. He's the one that created the contracts. And the brilliant thing that he did after he signed the dream team, he gave them all contracts that could cancel out within 2 years. So if Philadelphia being able to recover and win the division in 2013 was a direct result of Howie Roseman saying, okay, Our free agents didn't work out. We can cut them without owing any dead money to them. Excellent. Now let's move forward and build this team the right way. I look at what he has done historically, and yes, he can be cautiously aggressive. But I also look at what he's done historically, and if he can get a top player at safety, a top player as a pass rusher, make a deal to bring in a guard. You want to talk about the guard position? Who's going to start at right guard now that Cam Jurgens is moving to center? How about Kevin Zeitler? He's 34 years old. There's going to be a lot of questions surrounding his effectiveness as an aging veteran. But if you're looking for a stopgap, if you don't trust Tyler Steen, that might come a little cheaper now. That's the guy you want. That's a Brandon Brooks type of player that's been dependable his entire career, that will turn the offensive line from going, yeah, they're going to still have questions, to they might actually be better than last season's group.
Do you have faith in Cam Jurgens as a center?
Yes, 100%. He was playing out of position at right guard.
And he was still playing pretty solidly there.
And that's the thing. Like, he wasn't bad. It just wasn't the all-pro play that we were used to seeing at these positions. Cam Jurgens is a natural center. The difference between him and Landon Dickerson, people will look at and say, well, Dickerson was drafted as a center, moved to guard. Dickerson's frame fitted better for the left guard position than Cam Jurgens' frame does at right guard. There's a reason why they are moving him back to center. He is a natural center that should fit beautifully with Philadelphia's offensive system. I kind of compare it, and I don't want to do this to him and give those kind of expectations right away. But in the 1970s, Pittsburgh, for those of you guys that remember, Mike Webster is a Hall of Fame center, and he was one of the greatest centers of all time. And right before his retirement, Pittsburgh drafted Dermontti Dawson with their, I think it was a first-round pick. Dawson played so well in training camp that they let Mike Webster go, and they essentially asked him to be a coach. And Pittsburgh was in the situation where they drafted two Hall of Fame centers in back-to-back eras. Dawson is still considered one of the greatest centers of all time. Philadelphia could set themselves up very nicely here, and I think Jurgens, because of his similar skill set to Kelce, is set up very, very nicely for success in the long term.
I mean, obviously, massive, positive reviews there on, Cam Jurgens. How about Tyler Steen? Is there any confidence? Yeah. Because I thought in the small spots when he took over for Payda that one game and then he started one game, I mean, it was a small sample size and he was a young kid and he wasn't getting much work at that point. I thought he performed pretty well. And
I agree.
Yeah, I think, I mean, we hope the offensive line is great again. I think it can be with Jurgens and Steen both out there starting.
They're going to need some depth. Jack Driscoll is a free agent. You look at Sua Opeta, he's also a free agent. I look at the Eagles' offensive line as very top heavy because you have Lane and Mailata, Dickerson. They're going to address the line in the draft. They could address it in free agency. Steen showed a lot of promise, and maybe Philadelphia goes out there in training camp in the draft and saying, we don't need to address guard because we believe in Tyler Steen's development. Just because he didn't play last year doesn't mean that it was because he was a bad player or they didn't trust him. I think it was more just about Philadelphia believing they were in a championship window and keeping Jurgens out there and starting Opeta as a veteran made more sense for the organization than starting the rookie and letting him go through those lumps. I don't think it's anything against Steen. I think it's more just where the team was. Howie Roseman made the point at the Combine saying they want to get a little younger at some positions, start trusting their younger players a little more. I think you can use Tyler Steen as a direct shout out for that particular comment.
Yeah, absolutely. You got one other position in need on the offensive side. There's a couple, but the next topic on offense is the wide receiver, because you got two things. You need a wide receiver 3, and the next shoe to drop could be the Devontae Smith extension, which probably will happen. Maybe not today, but over the next couple of days. First on Devontae Smith, we saw the Dickerson extension. We've seen some contracts to wide receivers. Wide receiver market has been very slow in free agency. Not that there's a lot of names, but Michael Pittman got a 3-year, $70-some million extension. Obviously, Devontae Smith is a better receiver than Michael Pittman. Not as much as people realize. I think Pittman's an underrated player, but at least you're starting there, plus tacking on a little bit more. What do you think a Devontae Smith extension looks like? Because I'm in the realm of about 4 for 80 is about what I'm looking at for Devontae Smith,
I'd give him the AJ Brown deal. I'd give him the same exact deal.
which was
Because
for
I think it was like
uh,
for 100 million,
yeah,
something
I think
like
it was
that.
for 100. Yeah,
I'd give him the same exact deal because one cannot exist without the other in that case. They are both all pro caliber receivers. They both need to be Eagles in the long term. They're going to have to rework AJ Brown's deal next season. I look at this organization that understands that they are in a position, a very rare position, where you have two players that are going to go down as the greatest duo of receivers in Eagles history if they aren't already. I mean, we want to talk about
yep.
Jeremy Maclin and Deshaun Jackson. Those two were great. This is on a completely different level. These guys are just dominating left and right at wherever they're positioned on the field. And I think Devontae Smith, you want to talk about a player that's going to be impacted the most by Kellen Moore, it's going to be him. He is going to be used in a variety of ways. He could lead the team in receiving next year simply because of the scheme that Moore wants to employ. But I look at a potential deal. I would give him the same as AJ Brown. Same exact deal, same exact structure, and say, we both love and value you the most. We want you guys to stay. Keep this together, and let's keep rolling.
I hate to jump back to the defense, but Dave brought up a great comment. Start Milton over Jordan Davis. I don't know about that, but the fact that I forgot to bring up Milton Williams when we were talking about the defense, because he could technically get an extension this offseason as well. And I am a massive Milton Williams fan. Have been since he was a rookie on this team. Underappreciated. I know all the stats, snap percentage wise, comparing him to the greats like Aaron Donald and whatnot. I would love to see a Milton Williams. I came into this offseason assuming we were going to lose Milton Williams, but I've not heard any rumors. So now I'm kind of in the boat where maybe there's a scenario where Milton Williams could stay here for the long term. And I think that would be huge to take those Fletcher Cox minutes and snaps and put them on Milton Williams' plate. And I think he could thrive if he was given that extra opportunity.
I think that's 100% what's going to happen. You want to have multiple defensive tackles in this defense. And I still think I'm still high on Jordan Davis. I don't think just because of last year's struggles down the stretch, that was his first full season in a little bit because he didn't play most of the year in 2022, didn't have that opportunity. I look at him as a guy that can break out in 2024 simply because in Fangio's system, I think he's going to be set up for success in a major, major way because I trust Fangio and his pass rushing capabilities over Sean Desai. We saw Sean Desai say, okay, go after the quarterback. However you do it, just go and do it. Is a little more structure with Fangio. And I think that's going to help Davis. I think that's going to help Jalen Carter. But with Milton Williams, I mean, you want to talk about a draft class that was nailed with the first 3 picks. Howie Roseman did it in 2021, guys. I mean, it was absurd. Devontae, Landon, Milton. I know Tom Donahue won't be happy, but Milton Williams is a great pick. And obviously, Elaine McNeil is a very good player in his own right. But I think Philadelphia is very comfortable, and I think an extension for him will be on the table. I think a team-friendly extension is going to be on the table, essentially saying, we believe in you. Go out and be the Fletcher Cox of this defense. Get out after the quarterback. Become the guy that you can be. And I think Philadelphia, like I said, they're in a rare position here. They don't have a need. They're not going to have a glaring need that they need to fill with the 22nd overall pick. They could address the defensive line. They could address corner. They could address the receiver position. They could address the offensive line. There's so many different places that they can go with the 22nd overall pick, and it's going to allow them to get the best player available, whether that's Laiatu Latu of UCLA, whether that's Quinion Mitchell of Toledo, whether it's any of these guys. They're going to be in a position here to trust the youth. They have Isaiah Rodgers. They have Kelee Ringo. I'm very high on Kelee Ringo from last season. I thought he had a great rookie year, all things considered. This team is going to be set up. There's still going to be some questions, but Milton Williams is a guy that he's the type of player you want to invest in just to see how far he can go.
Aaron Jones, since the show went live, went to the Vikings. Yeah, that's not surprising. I mean, good for Aaron Jones. I kind of feel like he got the short end. There's a lot of things. We're going to talk in a minute I don't actually know how much time I've got with you here, Nick. We just keep rambling on.
Yeah, we got a few minutes. It's all good.
Yeah, you're good. I want to say real quick on Jordan Davis. Everybody's down on Jordan Davis, and they're saying he was out of shape and whatnot. He came into the year with something to prove last year, and he was actually proving it early on in the season. He was playing great, and everybody was talking about the breakout Jordan Davis season. He just didn't maintain it. I sarcastically said that after he chased down Josh Allen, that was all that he had left in the tank, and then that's when he fell off a cliff. So just don't chase Josh Allen down, and he'd be fine. I expect another step in the evolution of Jordan Davis. I'm not.
Yeah.
I know everybody wants to say Kyle Hamilton, and I'm right there with them. I would have loved Kyle Hamilton. Who wouldn't have seen what he's doing? But I'm not ready to write Jordan Davis off as an Eagle yet, or as a football player yet. So, I'm very content with Jordan Davis taking another step forward in 2024.
Can we also acknowledge Jordan Davis is not the reason the defense faltered down the stretch?
No.
I mean, he wasn't very good, but how many defensive players actually played well down the stretch? How many of them? It's
nobody.
I can't blame Jordan Davis for running out of gas because the entire team ran out of gas. It wasn't just him. Hassan Reddick and Josh Sweat, who are dependable guys that can get after the quarterback, did nothing down the stretch. Whether it was against the Giants, the Cardinals, the Cowboys, the Seahawks, the Buccaneers, they were quiet as all hell. I'm not going to blame Jordan Davis for being one of the guys that ran out of gas. I can't. In good conscience, I can't.
So real quick, before we get you out of here, there's a lot of other moves around the NFL. Is there? I mean, we already touched on Brian Burns and a few others. Hold on a second. Yes, that is me. I am probably yes. Am I supposed to remember? I'm sorry. I don't know who you are, Bob, but yes, that is me. For sure. Are there any other moves that shocked you? Because me, like, I mean, it's not shocking, but also kind of like, how does he keep getting big deals? Kirk Cousins getting a huge deal with Minnesota. There was a lot of big money thrown everywhere yesterday. What in your mind, one or two of the bigger moves that surprised you yesterday?
So I'll address that, but first off, I know the question was asked: Godfather or Goodfellas?
Yeah, I always close with that, but you can answer it now.
It's Godfather, 1,000%. Godfather, 1,000%. It's not even close. It's not funny. It's It's one of the greatest movies.
I actually put Godfather 2 ahead of Godfather 1.
Oh, you can put that up. Whatever you want to do, it's perfectly fine. It's two of the greatest movies of all time. Yeah, it's still the freaking Godfather. Marlon Brando is just insanely good in that movie. Just absurd. But anyway, with the biggest surprises, I will say what Carolina's doing surprises me a little bit. Giving a 5-year, $100 million contract to Mike Hunt, that was absurd to me. I like what I'm seeing out of the Rams. I thought they had a very good free agent class. Bringing in Jackson, bringing in Dotson. I really think the Rams are building something very, very dangerous in the NFC West. Mm-hmm. But then I have to look at the Falcons. You want to talk about a team that was a quarterback away. They went 7-10 last year. They have a number one back. They have a great offensive line, great receivers. The defense is very underrated. I'm looking at Atlanta as probably the fourth best team in the NFC right now. Wow. I have questions about Green Bay. I think they're going to be really good next year. It's all going to depend on how Jordan Love progresses in his second full season as a starter. I think Detroit is going to naturally take a step back because it's just when you have that kind of success, it's hard to continue that. I think they're going to have a backward slide. The Bears had a very good free agency overall day one. I think the North is going to be very competitive. But I look at the South. The Bucs are going to be in contention. The Saints, I can't trust. The Panthers are still a couple of years away. I look at Atlanta and say the only reason why they didn't win the division last year is because Desmond Ridder was their quarterback. Kirk Cousins, look, we can joke about him all we want. He's a quality starting quarterback, whether it's top 15, top 12. That changes the equation in a lot of this talk in the NFC. Don't be surprised if Atlanta wins the South going away next year.
I don't know. I mean, Kirk Cousins, I get what you're saying. I do think people crush Kirk Cousins unnecessarily. I mean, he's a very solid, somewhere in that 12 to 15 range, like you said. Yeah. But it's not like he didn't have talent in Minnesota either. He had Dalvin Cook in his prime. He had Justin Jefferson. He
That
had
defense
talent there
wasn't
as
good,
well.
though.
He had talent there.
Sure, but that defense wasn't good, and that's the problem. Like they got sunk last year because the defense wasn't good and hasn't been good for a very long time. And obviously the playoff games are the focus. Do I think the Falcons are going to be a championship team? No, but they're still good enough to get there. They're still good
Drew's
enough to be
lurking
in
in
this
the
conversation.
background, just waiting to make a comment, and that's when he chooses to make a comment. Yeah, Falcons got a defense. All right, so Nick, you're doing lots of stuff right now. You got Pro Football Network, Sports Illustrated. You're doing a live show now too on Twitter.
Yes.
Football with Faria, I think is what it's called.
Yes. Yeah,
sorry, I had it written down somewhere, but I lost it.
It's all good.
Yeah, no, you're doing great stuff there. What do you got happening this week?
So obviously, I'm still looking for full-time employment, which is numero uno on my focus list. But
we all are.
Yeah, it's so essentially I'm writing for Sports Illustrated. I'm covering the Jets for Sports Illustrated, helping out with a couple other stories left and right. And then I do most of my Eagles coverage with Pro Football Network. They've been fantastic. They're really good. And then on the side, try to do a show Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays every day, 5:00. It's going to be interesting. Trying to stay busy at this time as I'm bored out of my mind in my own house.
Well, that's not good. You're welcome to come on here every morning that you're bored.
I appreciate it.
This has been an easy first hour and change of a show because I've barely had to do anything other than just like comments and pose the question. So I love it. Everybody make sure you shoot Nick a follow at Nick_Faria1720. That's where you can find all his work. One final thing. What is on your hat? I've had about 10 we've got 130 plus comments on the show. About 10 or 12 of them have been, what is the hat?
Okay. I went to Hofstra University. For those of you in Philadelphia, that is on Long Island. Yes. I live in New York. For those of you that are a little angry, however, I am still an Eagles fan. Let's just put that out there right off at the top. But I went to Hofstra University. They are the Hofstra Pride. They actually just got upset in their conference tournament because they have a penchant for blowing great chances. I'm sure we all can relate to that overall. But yeah, so this is a Hofstra Pride team hat. I couldn't wear some of the other team stuff that I have, mostly because I want to try to be as objective as possible.
Look at you being we are not objective on trending in the AM at all, ever. But anyway, thank you very much for your time today, Nick. I greatly appreciate you, my man.
Appreciate it.
All right, thanks. That was Nick Faria there on the I Have No Sponsor hotline. Guys, make sure you shoot him a follow. He's great. He's hilarious. Fantastic writer, fantastic content creator right there, for sure. I know. It's the pride. Whatever the pride is. Is pride an animal? I don't know. The longest explanation ever. Guys, Nick Faria is great. I see your comment, K1. I'm not putting it up there. Just saying. Godfather's correct. He just validated everything about football. Yes, Big Al. Cousin does choke in the big games. I still find it hard to believe everyone thinks Atlanta is going to be great now that Kirk Cousins is there. Kirk Cousins had Justin Jefferson. Drake London is great, but not Justin Jefferson. Bijan Robinson can be great, but he might not be Dalvin Cook. Kyle Pitts hasn't done anything yet. But yes, as he said here, exactly. And Bob, yeah, shoot me a message on Twitter or Instagram if you want. I'd love to reconnect with you. I'd love to talk Holy Cross Days with you, my man. So do that. Guys, you're watching Trending in the AM right here on Philadelphia Sports Network. Make sure you hit the like button, the share button, the subscribe button, the follow button, the retweet button, wherever you're watching. We got about 20 minutes left in this show. Any more questions, any more comments? I tried to focus on Nick there, so I missed a lot of your comments. So any thoughts? Saquon Barkley is an Eagle. Bryce Huff is an Eagle. Landon Dickerson is now the most expensive guard in football. They are your big moves. Zach Bond, Lloyd Braun, whatever you want to call them, is on the Eagles as well. Bring it all to the table. All the other, what's it say? K1, yeah, K1's out of control today. I ain't gonna lie. K1 has literally been out of control in the comments all show, and I absolutely love it. He did try to change the topic to the Flyers today, but forget that. We're not talking Flyers the day after the first day of free agency. What the hell? I did see a picture that Tortorella did adopt a new puppy, so tip of the cap to that. Adopt, don't shop. But what a shocking first day of free agency it's been. What a shocking. I mean, And the news is just going to keep rolling in. I almost just want to stop for a second and refresh my Twitter feed real quick and see if any other news is breaking at this point. The Eagles aren't done. There's a lot of rumors that Chauncey Gardner-Johnson will be in Philadelphia again by the end of today. I'm still on board saying I don't want him back. Just like I didn't want Howie paying Saquon. It doesn't mean I won't be happy that they're here. I'm glad Saquon Barkley's our running back. I hope it works out. And I never really got to say my opinion on this. Saquon Barkley to the Eagles, 3 years, about 13 change a year, is such a high risk, but also high reward. If Saquon can stay healthy because he's off of the MetLife turf, if he can stay healthy because we have a better offensive line, if we actually give him the ball the amount that we should, there's a chance that Saquon Barkley becomes the greatest Eagles running back of all time, even in just 3 years. But it's also got an opportunity to completely backfire if he runs out of money for the defense, Howie, or Saquon goes down for a lengthy period of time. There's a big risk reward with Saquon Barkley. But you know what? Scared money don't make money. And Howie's trying to win a Super Bowl. Yeah, Sam Darnold. Going from Kirk Cousins to Sam Darnold. Sir, any difference there, K1? I mean, Justin Jefferson's going to want out of Minnesota really quickly there, isn't he? I think he already did, maybe. I'm sure Harbaugh and Chargers are planning big moves. They lost Austin Eckler. The Chargers aren't making big moves because they are one of the few teams that are actually still over the cap. They're talking about trading Bosa, Mike Williams, a couple other guys. I forget the other names. But they're looking to unload some of their big contracts because, yes, the Chargers are massively over the cap. I don't know what's happening in L.A. With the Chargers. I still think Justin Herbert's, slightly overrated, and that gets me crushed all the time when I say it, but it is what it is. Cousins and Romo have identical career stats. And Tony Romo is a good quarterback. Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback. He's not great, but he's not bad. He's the perfect – if he was put in the right system, maybe Atlanta is the right system. If you give him a dominant defense, maybe. You put him in that division. I mean, Carolina is a train wreck in the South. The fact that they could have traded Brian Burns for a first at the deadline, but waited and they got a second for him. And I mean, insane given Brian Burns $30 million a year. Kind of crazy. Is it any easier or harder, the South than the North? I mean, Detroit might take a step back, like Nick said. Still waiting to see what the Jordan Love development line is like. Minnesota would have been front runners if they kept Kirk Cousins in the NFC North. I don't know. I don't know how that's going to all shake out. I'm not really sure. But I just love the fact that Howie Roseman is not afraid to take the risks so far this offseason. And we might see more today. We might see nothing today. Tomorrow, we might just continue this conversation without a guest. We might. What are the Falcons doing? They're trying to win one more game than last year. Because that's what Kirk Cousins swings the needle maybe to one more win. Maybe. It's also you got a new coach. It's a good spot for him. I mean, Kirk Cousins, if he plays out that 4-year deal, think of it this way. If he plays out that 4-year deal, $180 million, he is going to have made over $400 million in his career. That's insane. Kirk Cousins, $400 million. But you know what? More power to him. Good for him. Bengals cutting Mixon and not extending Higgins or Boyd, because Boyd's available as well. But yeah, the Bengals, I don't know what the Bengals are doing. I don't. You got Joe Burrow. You got the Eagles have Jalen Hurts. And Jalen Hurts and Joe Burrow are two totally different quarterbacks. Joe Burrow is more traditional quarterback. Jalen Hurts is the modern quarterback. The Eagles gave him Devontae Smith, then gave him A.J. Brown, and now are giving him Saquon Barkley. The Bengals have Joe Burrow. They gave him Jamar Chase and are taking everything else away from him. Does that make any sense? You have an elite quarterback that you're invested in. He's your franchise. You're taking weapons away from him. That doesn't make sense to me at all. A lot of quarterbacks moved too. It wasn't just Mick or Kirk Cousins. Obviously, Mac Jones a couple days ago got traded, but Justin Fields hasn't got moved yet either, which is surprising. Maybe he goes to the Raiders. You had Gardner Minshew go to the Raiders, maybe? I forget. Gardner Minshew signed. Tyrese Taylor signed yesterday. A lot of quarterbacks did move. What is up? Reality check. Long time, first time. What's up, my man? Hope you're doing well. Let me know how you feel about day one of free agency, not just the Eagles, everything. Give it to me all. What your guys' thoughts are. But Howie knocked it out of the park day one. And he had to be aggressive, like I said. And he had to. Jacoby back to the Pats. That's a great spot actually for him, Jacoby, because Jacoby Brissett deserves a chance to start. He is going to be starter day one. The Patriots got to steal a 1-year, $8 million deal for him. They can go out and draft their next franchise quarterback or hopeful franchise quarterback. You have Jacoby Brissett to ease the transition, so you're not dumping Mac Jones type guy on the field day one and setting him up for failure. The Patriots aren't going to be a good football team next year. But at least they got a solid veteran that could play quarterback and make them respectable going forward. And give whoever they draft a minute to learn, to grow, to be groomed. Glad to hear all as well, my man. Glad to hear it. I'm here for all the Ayuk Niners drama. Is there Ayuk Niners drama right now? I would love Brandon Ayuk as our wide receiver 3. Because we still got to address, we really didn't talk about wide receiver 3. The wide receiver market has not moved. Gabe Davis, he got a 3-year deal from the Jags. Gabe Davis is a Jag. Literally and figuratively speaking. Waste of money from the Jaguars there. Calvin Ridley's still available. I'd like to see him as our wide receiver 3, honestly. The wide receiver market's been slow. Michael Pittman signed an extension, 3 years, $70 million. And when I said that's the baseline for Devontae Smith, I know Devontae Smith's going to get more than Michael Pittman, but people thought I was saying that Michael Pittman's equal. And everyone's like, no, Devontae Smith is 10 times the player. I think Michael Pittman on the Eagles would be as good as Devontae Smith. Michael Pittman's got three different starting quarterbacks week one the last 3 years of his career. Michael Pittman has carried that offense through multiple regimes, multiple coaches, and whatnot. So, yeah, Wilkes and Crosby in Las Vegas. Damn. That was another big deal right there. Really was still disappointed that we didn't get Xavier McKinney. At least we don't have to worry about our running back fumbling in the red zone anymore. Guys, you're going to be so pissed off. Week one in Brazil. When it's first and 10 from the 16-yard line on the opening drive for the Eagles. And Saquon Barkley ain't out there. It's Kenny Gainwell getting the handoff on first and second down. Just wait for it to happen. Just wait for it. Wait for it. Kenny Gainwell, first down. First and goal from the 7. Saquon Barkley ain't out there. It's not going to happen. But it would be kind of funny if it did. Reality check. Loves the Huff signing, and I love Barkley. I'm just worried. We haven't had a head coach or coaching staff utilize the halfback position right in 5 years. If Barkley doesn't have 150 carries, I'm going to implode. He'll have more than 150 carries unless he's injured. But will he have more than 200, 220, whatever it was for DeAndre Swift? I knew something was up when Swift went to the Bears so quickly. I really thought there was an opportunity for the Eagles to bring Swift back. 3 years, $24 million for Swift. That's a lot of money for DeAndre Swift. I didn't think he would get that much money. And that set the tone for the day with running backs. Josh Jacobs got $48 million. Saquon got 37, upwards of 45. A lot of big money. Tony Pollard got a pretty big deal, $24 million. Oddly, Eckler did not get more. What did Eckler get? 2 years, like $10 million or something like that. I know Eckler's got an injury history, but he's still a pretty explosive back when healthy. The running back market boomed yesterday. Like, a lot of running backs got paid a lot of money yesterday, and a lot of running backs moved teams yesterday. It'll be interesting when I start looking at fantasy football in a few weeks to a few months, how some of my values on some of these running backs change now that they're on new teams and in new offenses and stuff. Plus, I felt there was way too many holes on D to be so worried about the halfback. What do I know? Look, as Nick Faria, our guest earlier in the show, said, you're building the most elite offense in the NFL. You're giving your franchise quarterback every opportunity to succeed. There is still work to do on defense, but there's still money to spend. They are going to bring in Simmons or Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. They're going to bring in another linebacker. They've got 4 picks in the top 97, 3 picks in the top 54 of the draft. I actually see scenarios if they trade Sweat or Reddick, like they've talked about, and they get even more draft capital this year, where the Eagles move up in the second round or move up in the first round. I saw somebody say trade up to get Bowers. There's going to be a lot more wheeling and dealing and moving and new additions to this team. I just don't foresee Howie being able to be. Normally, Howie, he makes one big bold move, like sign Hassan Reddick, and then we don't hear from crickets for the next 2 weeks because he lets the rest of the market settle, and then he picks up from there. Howie, if he wants Justin Simmons, if he wants Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, if he wants Devin White or whoever at linebacker, he's got to pounce. He's got to make the moves now because everybody's still got cap space. Everybody's got moves to make. So be aggressive and get it done. I'm not worried about whoever said in the comments, dream team vibes. I'm not worried. It's a different scenario, a different situation, and a different team. No, I get it, but offenses don't win Super Bowls. These do. I get that. I agree. Agree. 1,000%. But we're not done yet. And there's still plenty of money. I haven't seen an updated number, but there's still money to be spent. I'll do a cap update for tomorrow's show as we continue on this free agency and whatever else happens. But they're going to improve. They Bryce Huff improves the defense, and maybe as Nick said earlier in the show, maybe there's a scenario where Reddick and Sweat stay with Huff, and then you got a 3-headed monster, 4-headed monster if you count Nolan Smith. You might have the best foursome on the edge in the entire NFL if you keep all 4 of them. I don't care if our score can torch 20 points if they well, obviously. That's obvious. One underrated element to Reddick's game is his timing on momentum, shifting defensive plays. That's a great point. And Reddick's much better in the run defense than people give him credit for. Yeah, he is. He is absolutely. But like I said, I'm happy. Hope all is well. Hey, great to have you back, my man. It's all good. We're having fun today. Today was an easy day for me. Having Nick on for an hour. Nick is so professional and speaks so eloquently. Yeah, really, really, really great guest. Really great information from him. More than just your comments today. We'll try to get Nick on again soon. We didn't even talk about Landon Dickerson much. I mean, what a deal. We joked, and Dave, you had some predictions yesterday. You were almost spot on. I thought I was insane yesterday, even suggesting $19 million a year or whatever, 5 for 95 or whatever I said yesterday. I thought I was ridiculous saying that because guards don't get paid that, and then they do, and other guards got big money yesterday too. I'm very happy that Howie saw the value and saw the need to make sure Landon Dickerson is locked up long term. I will say I'm a little concerned. It's a lot of money for Landon Dickerson, considering the fact that he's only played 46 games in 3 years. He does miss time. He does get banged up. It's why the importance of depth the rest of this offseason on the offensive line, draft or free agency, is very, very important. So there's that slight bit of concern there. But Landon Dickerson, I mean, one of the best lineman, period, no matter the position in the NFL, and he's paid like it. The fact that that's the third biggest story of the day yesterday for the Eagles is crazy. So since we got Barkley, do we start chanting, "We are Philly"? Penn State fans are going to be storming Philadelphia when those jerseys go on sale. They're going to love that. They're probably going to do a Barkley Day at Penn State too, since he's back here. Lane and Kelce, I've talked about how great Landon is and how hard he works. Landon Dickerson's the future leader of this offensive line. Lane Johnson now, I guess, de facto takes over as the main leader of the offensive line. I think he more leads by example than verbally. Dickerson, maybe he's got that personality to step up and fill the Kelce leadership role. Maybe Jordan Mailata does. I love Jordan Mailata's personality. He's light, he's fun, but he's also serious. He's always got everybody's back. Can Jordan Mailata be that leader? I don't know. But the offensive line is solidified. I mean, think about it. Mailata's got a few years left on his deal. Landon Dickerson's now locked up for the next 5 this year and the next 4-year extension. You got Steen. We'll see. Cam Jurgens, we'll see. But he's still on his rookie deal for a few more years. And then you got Lane Johnson that's going to play through 2026, he claims. So that's a couple more years. Our elite offensive line is going to stay elite for a long time. And I'm here for it. You don't go get Saquon Barkley without making sure that you keep your offensive line elite. 2 years, $10 million. Who signed Ronald Darby? Did we bring him back or did somebody else? I can't really see Twitter and do the show at the same time. I really got to find a way to do that. Who signed him for 2 years, $10 million? I'm not sure. I'm just perusing through social media right now to see if any breaking news. Nope. The only things I'm seeing is the more on the Aaron Jones and Sam Darnold posts. That's all I'm seeing. Jag signed Ronald Darby. Okay. I mean, I don't need a Ronald Darby type. We might need more cornerback help, but if we need cornerback help, it's got to be through the draft and a young guy. In my opinion, you got to go get an elite cornerback in the draft. I didn't see it. I did not see it yesterday at all. I must have missed that. There's so much breaking news yesterday that a lot of it was missed. A lot of it was missed on a regular basis because there was so much happening. I'd say the most underrated signing is Josh Jacobs to Green Bay is going to take off. I mean, I don't know. You had Aaron Jones. I'm a huge Aaron Jones fan. Josh Jacobs really good too. But $48 million for Josh Jacobs. I don't know. It's a lot of money. I saw that. Ravens signed Darby, so we got one person saying Jags, one person saying Ravens. Who knows? Who knows? Guys, we're going to start the wrap-up process here. Huge show today. Huge viewership today. Thank you all very much. Make sure you're hitting that like, that share, that subscribe button, all the buttons that make this show grow. I'd greatly appreciate it. Excuse me. What will tomorrow bring? I don't know. We'll see. But we'll be talking about it tomorrow. We'll talk Sixers a little bit tomorrow. Tyrese Maxey back for the Sixers tonight. Cleared concussion protocol. Ravens can't get a Henry. I saw rumors that Henry to Baltimore. That would be interesting. I think that would be a great running back to have opposite of Lamar Jackson. That would be similar to giving Saquon to Jalen Hurts to an extent. I don't know what we're going to be talking about tomorrow because I don't know how aggressive or not aggressive how he's going to be today, how the NFL aggressive is going to be. But we'll talk about Sixers tomorrow. Maxey back, how that looks for how they look against the Knicks. We will touch on it. I know people don't get excited, but if Justin Crosby joins us tomorrow, we will talk Sixers with Justin Crosby. Outside of that, guys, we are going to wrap this shebang up. Tune in tonight, 6 p.m., Fairway to Heaven, right here, same channel. We're talking Players Championship, my favorite golf tournament of the year to watch, not bet, but to watch. That's tonight at 6 p.m., 7:30. Flipping the Birds, Brian Cameron and crew will be back for another episode. They're going to give their opinions on the first 2 days of free agency for the Eagles. So make sure you tune in. That's why it's so important to hit that subscribe, turn the notification bell on, guys, and that way you never miss a beat. Yes, thank you very much to Nick Faria for joining us. He's been on the show a few times. Nick's a great guest. Nick is very smart and really knows his stuff, and he covers a lot of NFL teams. Find that guy a full-time job. Someone should find him a full-time job out there covering a team. Everybody, I am Phil Stiefel, your host as always. Yes, from Holy Cross for Mr. Fitzgerald. Make sure you guys follow me. Any social media platform, I'm on it. At Beard and Knowledge. We'll be back tomorrow, 8 a.m. with another show. And, dude, this is not a go Birds. This is a go Birds.